Now a second challenger in the race, Mao Tosi. Mr. Tosi, your opening statement, please, of 1 minute.
My name is Mao Tosi. I have lived in East Anchorage since 1989. I moved up here from San Diego, California with my family. We drove here from San Diego, so it was a long trip. And, I've been a long time East Anchorage resident since then. Went to East High School 2 years. I went to Bartlett High School 2 years. You can call me a T-Bear. I had the opportunity to go off to college. It was a tough time in high school and very fortunate that I had coaches and mentors in my life at that time that motivated me and showed me that I could do so. Attended the University of Idaho where I played both basketball and football and had the opportunity to go off to the NFL because of that. And had a short career in the NFL from 2000 to 2003, broke my neck. Ended up moving back here and starting over. Started having my own kids and realizing that there are a lot of issues out there that I wanted to help be a solution to. So that's kind of how I started getting involved in the community and doing youth programs. And going from there, I took over the Northway Mall in 2011 and continue to do community activity and advocate for youth and families out there. And while I've been running the Northway Mall, but wanted to do more. And so that's what you see here now.
Thank you. You were known as a community activist. Why did you make the Assembly your next stage?
It was that I felt like I could do more in the community, and being one that's always been connected to the East Side and representing many communities over there, that it just seemed like the natural progression of the main things I've been a part of. And my frustrations watching politics and not feeling represented out there, that I felt I could do something. So so I jumped in the race.
What would be your first thing you would do as a member of the Assembly? Where would you put your energy when you got there?
I think the thing is that many communities feel disconnected from politics, feel disconnected and not represented properly. And I think one area would be to connect services to the community is a real need. There's many vocational and educational services out there that we need to connect to our community and go from there.
Okay. The Alaska Public Offices Commission has recommended that you be modestly fined for a variety of apparently minor campaign law violations. What happened?
I was one who jumped in the race and learning, and if I could advise other future candidates, is definitely to take the candidate classes, which I took after. And when the allegations and complaints came forward, I was the first one to share it with the media openly, because I'm proud of all the things I've been a part of. I'm proud of all the work I've done. And so going from there, we've resolved all the issues as quickly as possible so I can get back on the campaign trail.
Thank you. The dispute over the Sullivan administration's revisions of the labor law have dominated Assembly news for a year now, as you know. Did you support the changes in the labor laws or oppose them, or would you?
I would oppose them, actually. I'm definitely supportive of our city workers and would love to see them continue to have a voice. With our city growing currently, there's going to be a lot of issues that come forth. And if we don't have a strong law enforcement, if our schools are not strongly supported, our teachers, then they will go find other jobs elsewhere. But it leaves us with less education and more crime issues. I've got 5 kids in the city, and they're part of the public school system as well. So I have a lot invested.
Okay. What about moving the labor law referendum, the vote on the labor law, to November rather than holding it next month in April? Favor or oppose?
I would like to see it already voted on as soon as possible, but the votes were made and they've moved things, and so from there we can only wait and see what the benefits actually are.
How about moving the election, all the municipal elections, from the springtime to the fall?
It won't affect the current voting that I'm in,
yeah,
but
right.
I think it's one to see kind of how it will affect us in the future. I would like to see it kept as is.
Okay. There have been a number of stories on the reduction in the size of the police force here in Anchorage. Do we have an adequate number of police officers to keep Anchorage safe?
I believe we don't. I believe that we definitely should have a strong police force moving forward because our city is growing. There's talks of many of the refugee communities moving to Anchorage here currently. And not only that, but just providing more job opportunities out there for these communities, trying to fit those needs and meet those needs. But definitely having a strong police force that can be connected with the community is a real concern right now.
Okay. The expansion rebuild of the Port of Anchorage seems to be an endless source of controversy. There are charges of money wasted, delays, lawsuits even. Fingers are pointed. This is a very sticky, messy situation. How do we get out of it?
I think I would need to see more information on this issue right now. Currently, I don't know so much about it right now. It's really one that if I'm in the assembly seat, I would definitely learn more about it.
Okay. The legislature continues to fund the proposed Knik Arm crossing across Knik Arm to the valley. Yet we don't see any building, and money's being spent from time to time. Is there going to be a crossing? And are you in favor of a crossing or against it as it's proposed presently?
I think the area that it's in would really negatively affect the Government Hill area, so I would be opposed to it. Just like you shared, there's a lot of money wasted within that project, and would like to see it go elsewhere.
Okay, what is Anchorage's #1 transportation priority?
I think with the city that is growing right now, it's to really look at our transit system to ensure that it's getting to the areas that it needs to and making sure folks are able to get to their job opportunities or their activities around town.
Then following up on that, how can we improve public transportation?
I think to improve public transportation, we should look at grant opportunities out there. There's definitely wasted funds or funds that aren't being utilized that we can connect with, federal money as well. But I think to try to build our transit system a little better or stronger would be great.
Okay. Alcohol continues to be involved in a disproportionate percentage of crime and disorder. What can be done to reduce the damage alcohol does to our community?
Providing more opportunities out there for those to make better choices is one route, but also raising awareness to the effects of alcohol are definitely a need. There are services out there that are trying to reach the communities and those individuals that need these services. So I would say that would be a route.
Okay. The number of street people fluctuates, but street people who are homeless are a permanent part of the community. How can we reduce their number and the friction between the street people and the rest of society?
There has to be a neutral site that can be there where we can provide services to these many individuals that need it. Even currently they're utilizing the Fairview area strongest, and so but the residents there are having a concern with the many that are around their area. So, there's the Carlick Manor also over there. So there are certain services around that are being utilized, but I think there is a need for more.
One thing that people who follow politics notice is you mentioned Fairview. The turnout in elections there is usually fairly poor, if not just generally poor. How do you motivate people and get them involved in participating in elections?
I think that's where I'm at right now currently, is that I felt the need to get involved in knowing that my community, minority communities, don't vote as much. Even in Mountain View, there was less than 1% that voted. So hopefully I can be an example to others to encourage them to not only vote, but to get out there and do their best to be a solution.
Okay. What do you like best about Anchorage?
I have 5 kids, and what's great is that I can take them sledding during the winter. During the summer, I can take them to Goose Lake. These are things that I've done over the years as I've grown up here, and it doesn't cost us a thing. So bike riding, and so I'd say the parks and trails are really one of the best parts of Anchorage.
If you could, what would you change about Anchorage?
What would I change? I think it wouldn't be to change, but to connect. I think that there are many services that are underutilized or communities aren't aware of. So trying to connect these services, not to recreate the wheel, but ensure that there is a connection between all the communities, because we all we all have the same problems. You know, the crime, education, unemployment, it affects all our, whether you're black, white, or Samoan. These are all issues that affect us all. So, but also it's the same solutions should be shared by all of us.
Okay, if you visit our libraries, you will find they are crowded, but do we appropriate enough money, provide enough resources to adequately provide for our libraries and their patrons?
I think that funds should be allocated to many other areas. You know, libraries are one of them. Arts, athletics, trails and parks. So there are many areas that can definitely provide a positive impact for our community if funds can be provided in that way.
Okay, this is on a different subject, but it's an important one. Police shootings. This is altercations between police officers and citizens. Sometimes the citizens are behaving very badly, as we know. There have been a number of them, and some people find these shootings troubling. What do you think?
You know, I think that it's tough to put myself in the shoes of a police officer. They're out there fighting every day, and their lives are on the line. So it's one that in the heat of the moment, it's a decision that they have to make, and what we hope is that they're trained properly and ready for those decisions. So if there needs to be more funding and training the police officers to ensure that when these issues arise that they're able to make the right decision, you know, whether we go to tasers or other alternative options. You know, there's many options out there, but in the heat of the moment, it's really a tough call.
We often hear that taxpayers are overtaxed, that the burden is too great. Do you think at the present time we are taxing our citizens fairly, and that we only are at the present time using the property tax?
You know, I currently rent and look forward to owning my first home. I think that, you know, looking at property taxes then is, you know, where are these funds allocated is something that I would like to know and justify. You know, if they are going to deal with crime or education, I would feel better knowing that my property taxes or my funds went to education.
Okay. What do you think your current position at the Northway Mall as a manager over there has taught you that you could bring to city government or city affairs as a value in helping us shape a community or community policy?
I hope it shows that I can utilize what I have and to maximize those resources and make it all work to be successful. You know, when I took over the Northway Mall in 2011, we were 60% occupied. You know, currently we're at 95% occupied and continuing to grow. Not only that, but is to utilize the services around. There are more than 300 jobs on that property, but also that's a place for the community to gather. You know, that whenever there's a cause and a need out there, I'm usually the first one that they connect with, and we do our best to try to help the community in many ways, fundraising and other causes around.
We frequently hear that government is inefficient. Have you looked closely enough at our municipal government to have an opinion about whether that's true or not?
I have not looked close enough. I think that's the thing is I would like to, you know, get involved in the assembly and be in the assembly so that I can definitely give it more time and thought.
Okay, the assembly does not run our schools. We have a school board to do that. It is involved in some aspects, especially funding. Your evaluation of Anchorage schools.
You know, I have 5 kids currently, 4 that are in the school district currently, and one more that once he turns 5 here in a few weeks will be in as well. So I have definitely an investment in the school district and would like to see them continue to have stronger support from our city.
And you yourself went to Anchorage schools? And,
yes, I went to Clark Middle School, I went to Bartlett 2 years, and I went to East High School 2 years where I graduated.
We don't have a lot of time left, but if you had a parting message for the voters as we approach Election Day, what might you tell them in 30 seconds or less?
You know, if everyone's been watching me over the past nearly 10 years, I've only tried to do my part in the community, and I want to continue. And I hope I have your support to do those things. I care about this community very much, and you know, it's never been to point fingers or point out the negative, but to try to do as much positive as I possibly can. So I hope I have your support moving forward.
Okay, we're gonna have to leave it right there. Thank you, Mr. Tosi.